So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna call to order this meeting of Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council, the Board of Directors for Thursday, April 2nd, 2026. First thing we're gonna do is just take introductions.
Kimberly Howell, Executive Coordinator.
Mike Riley, Bend City Councilor, Board Chair.
Tammy Beatty, COIC Executive Director.
Christine McConnell, Deschutes County seat for outdoor recreation and tourism.
Matt Earl, Deschutes County seat for the unemployed and underemployed.
Tim DeBoot, Crook County for Ag and Natural Resources.
Susie Harmerick, Crook County Commissioner.
Seth Taylor, Jefferson County Commissioner.
Janice Curtis, City of Pine Councilor.
In person.
Christy Abbey, City of Metolius Councilor.
Michelle Williams, COIC Deputy Director, Fiscal Manager.
Bob Townsend, Cascades East Transit.
Megan Tuck, Program Coordinator in Community and Economic Development at COIC.
Sean Keithley, Community and Economic Development Director, COIC. Patrick Gervick, COIC Loan Officer.
And then online, I'll start with you, Mr. Piper.
Thank you, sir. Chris Piper, Deschutes County Business and Industry.
And Whitney
Whitney Bell, Madras City Councilor.
and Cheryl.
Cheryl Pellerin, Sisters City Council.
So welcome, everybody. I'm gonna do something a little bit different tonight. I wanted to just make sure everybody knew that the chief of the Warm Springs tribe, Delvis Heath Senior, died on Sunday. And he actually was buried, as I understand it, yesterday morning at sunrise. So what I wanted to do, just in honor of him, Carlos from the tribes, who was here at our last meeting, can't make it today because of passing of their chief. I want to just read a little bit from an OPB article about Delvis, just because I don't know how much people know about him and his story, and I just thought it would be a good way to honor him. So as I said, you know, he'd been the chief for 40 years. He was 87. He passed away on Sunday. As chief, he's played an important dual role to uphold and remind members of his tribe of their traditional ways and values, and to educate the outside world what it meant to be a sovereign nation. As a person, his friends and family members remembered him as a gifted storyteller who loved riding horses, could hit his free throws on the basketball court, took up golf later in life, and often broke into a wide grin that could be contagious. He was instrumental in helping the outside world, including politicians in Salem, understand the Treaty of 1855 and what it meant to be a sovereign nation. The treaty created the Warm Springs Reservation on a small portion of what had been the tribe's 10 million acre territory. Oregon became a state 3 years later, using much of that land. In his early days as chief, he became friends with Republican Governor Vic Patia and later Governor Ted Kulongoski. On one trip to Salem in the 1960s, he told the Oregonian he was visiting the state capitol for a straightforward reason to remind people we are a nation within a nation. Kulongoski remembered Heath on Tuesday as someone who wanted to make sure that the state understood what it meant to be sovereign, that the tribes have their own government, judges, court systems, and are independent of state government. He was also a driving force in the creation of the Museum at Warm Springs. Keith wanted the museum to be a place where young tribal members could learn and understand the past. At the museum's dedication, he helped lead the religious washout service. "We are still here," he said, "and we're going to be here for many, many years. I want my people to know that." So that's part of the article. If you want to learn more, you could obviously Google that, and there's a bunch of stuff online. So.
And we are routing a card around to send on all of your behalf as well. So please sign that as it comes around to staff as well. And just keep them all in your thoughts.
Yeah. And hopefully Carlos will be able to. Service story, Megan.
Oh.
You're up with a mouthful.
For those of you online, can you see the slideshow?
No.
No, we cannot see it.
Why don't you
Happy to
go
get
ahead
started,
and
yeah.
start? Yeah, welcome.
All right, well, thanks for having me here today. My name is Megan Tuck. I'm a program coordinator in the Community and Economic Development Department. I'm glad that I get to share today's service story. And one thing I wanted to highlight is our work through a program that we call Central Oregon Safe Travel. This is a program that's funded by ODOT as well as some other partners that we've been the lead on now for about a year and a half. While this is a little different from the typical work that we do in CED, we stepped into this space because partners identified a gap in regionally coordinated safe driving messaging, education, and outreach. This work comes at a pretty critical time when many of our jurisdictions are completing their transportation safety action plans, which analyze crash data and develop solutions to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes on our roadways. And our program's focus is on implementing the education and outreach-based strategies alongside our partners in a way that's coordinated and aligned. And so what I specifically want to highlight today is the MAT, the Central Oregon Multi-Agency Traffic Team. This is a group of law enforcement agencies, which currently only includes Deschutes County agencies, so Bend PD, Redmond PD, Deschutes County Sheriff's Office, Black Butte Ranch Police Department, and Twin River Police Department, as well as Oregon State Police. Their goal is to prevent fatal and serious injury crashes on Deschutes County roadways through coordinated education and engagement and high visibility enforcement efforts is what they call them. They are newly relaunching after several years of inactivity, and their efforts target fatal 5 driving behaviors such as speed, occupant protection, lane departure, impairment, and distraction. Recently, we've been working really closely with Lieutenant Curtis Chambers, who's with Redmond Police Department. He's fantastic, and he's leading the MAT efforts. And he reached out to COIC with a request to support education and outreach to go along with their enforcement activities. And so the goal was to create aligned messaging that in social media content that could be used by the participating agencies with a new topic focus each month. And COIC used our resources to create this logo as well as some messaging that you can see in the next slide. Sorry, it's either delayed or let me try closing it out and going back in. It's okay. Oh yeah, there's just okay. But as you'll see, it's a bunch of social media posts that I just screenshotted off of agencies' profiles, just showing that they're in alignment and have similar messaging. This whole effort was focused around what we call the spring break blitz, just focusing on the time frame of spring break and focusing on impairment specifically. And by all measures, this was a great success. I included some statistics in the presentation as well, that you could see around different violations and citations that they were able to do, as well as arresting 13 folks for alleged DUIs. Wow, over the course of 3 days. Wow. So yeah, those are just some examples of things that we were able to put together and that they were able to just, copy and paste and repost for their agencies that were all in alignment and hopefully getting a lot of eyes on. Next month's focus is distracted driving. And we'll be coordinating some messaging for the MAT to go along with their enforcement efforts. And our plan is to continue this work as long as we have the funding from ODOT. And focusing on different behaviors each month to coincide with their efforts. And while the current MAT only includes Deschutes County jurisdiction, includes Deschutes County agencies, invitation is definitely open to our Crook and Jefferson County partners if they're interested. That's why we kept the name Central Oregon MAT, because they wanted to keep it open to the region as capacity and staffing needs are able to allow. So that's always a challenge in our rural communities. And MAT is just one aspect of our work through Central Oregon Safe Travel that I highlighted today, but we have multiple other strategies such as event-based DUI prevention and using employers as messengers to reduce distracted driving. So if you're interested in learning more and being involved with safety efforts, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you have any questions, please let me know.
I did see that spring break blitz.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought, yes, good timing.
Yes.
A lot of people, and people go.
Yep.
Sometimes you feel like you can drive fast.
And local travelers.
So you're aware that at 126 going through Prineville and Crook County, we had a little bit of our own blitz.
Yes.
So we did it from March 20th to the 30th, and we put up feeder boards to try to have people realize, and according to ODOT, they only will look at it a couple times and then they kind of obscure it from their vision, which I found was interesting, and then I started noticing that at the airport, that's kind of what I do, so I can't really blame the drivers, but yes, I don't know how many they got, but we tried to do it.
Yeah.
So if you come to Crook County, we would be very happy to include you on our Highway 126.
Definitely. I'm sure there's some strategies that we could do for those specific roadway subsections too that I know are really dangerous.
And we just had a fatality here, you said, what, a couple months ago?
I think there was even one more recently in the last 30 days.
Yeah, so it's good, and you know what's sad about it, is it's people trying to get there 5 minutes sooner.
Yeah.
And they're not,
Yeah.
they're not getting there at all, and if we could just remember that, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And of course, we went to Washington DC and tried to convince on 97.
Yes, we
got
did.
A lot of help,
Yes, we do.
yeah.
What was interesting to me was a concept, I was on one of the ODOT public survey meetings yesterday. And one of the gentlemen brought up that there are mathematics that you can do with the different mileage, like say from Bend to Klamath Falls. If you're going 75 miles an hour versus 65 miles an hour, here's the actual time difference. And it kind of, if you could somehow display that, if you're only saving 10 minutes,
Yeah.
you're only saving 12 minutes, you know, sometimes it's, sometimes that's more impactful for people.
That's what I say every time I get passed on the 4 lane at the airport at Prineville. I go, yeah, when I get to the roundabout, I'll be like 5 seconds behind you.
Any other questions for Megan?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great job, and
Yeah.
nice to see you.
So next public comment, I don't see anybody here in the room, I don't think, for public comments. And I'm not aware of anybody online either. So I don't think we're gonna have any public. Consent agenda, let's do these in 2 motions. First, approval of the minutes for March 5th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Second, anybody have any comments? Anybody notice anything that needs to be changed or added in there? I do not. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, back. And then, I need a motion for the reports.
I'll make a motion to open the reports.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, first, moved and seconded, any further discussion on the reports? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Did anybody have any part of the reports they wanted to talk about or have a question?
And I would just put in a poll that if, oh, sorry, please, sorry.
I'm contemplating.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Don't go ahead.
Well, I
I'll
was just
contemplate a little
gonna,
more.
it's an open invitation to, the reports are for you. So if there's information in there or information you'd like to see in there that we're not capturing, or you wanted it in a different format, or there's, we're reporting on things that we're spending a lot of time on and maybe it's not quite as relevant, let us know. They're really for you, so that when you get asked a question, hey, what's happening in transit or what's happening in CPD, you can pull that report and be like, oh, right, yeah, here's the status of that project. So they're meant for you. And so in that light, if there are comments, we'd love to hear them, especially from Crook County.
I'll talk to you afterward.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Just a general question about youth education. How do students become aware of that? Is that something that the individual school districts help work with COIC on potential students that would be good candidates for that? Or how does a student get initiated into the youth education project there?
If it's for the youth education, it's through a referral from the counselors at the district. And so we work really closely with High Desert ESD as from a general sense of their support, and then also from each specific district. And so we don't actively market or seek referrals. We may in the future, but right now the program is set up to where it's entirely referral only from the districts. And so they would be contemplating what resources they have and this student's individual needs, and then determining whether or not that's a good fit for COIC, or if they have a program that they'd like their student to try first.
Thanks, Tammy.
You bet.
Well, I was happy to see the 100% construction documents being ready for the.
For the core three, that's.
Yeah, so I
exciting,
thought,
yes.
well, we're making some progress there. So
Yes,
thought
yes.
That was a nice little milestone.
They have an important meeting in a couple of weeks to talk about what they're going to build. Sounds like the recommendation might be the EVOC, which is the training track, which was the number one thing that most locally wanted to have built. So, yeah.
I have a question, not on the reports, but on any of the projects where funding comes through COIC, the Heart of Oregon's a good example. Core Three is a good example. So is the project at Sisters with the investment that was made. Affordable housing project, I think that there was some type of solar power battery storage. Is there any type of name recognition that goes on, like the construction fences that identify the contractors and oftentimes the financing? So a lot of times commercial banks will, this project is financed by, does COIC do anything to get recognition, branding awareness out there that we're involved in these projects?
That's a great question. We don't typically, it's not that I think we would be opposed to that. Often we are sort of the mechanism to make sort of that others are, making it happen, where we wouldn't want to get in the limelight of a city because they're a member. Our job is to serve them. But I think there are times where we could be more, and specifically with the CED department, we could be sharing more of the message of the things that we are involved in, so that people get to see a little bit more of the, not just the complexity, but the depth and breadth of the work that the team does. So if that's something that you'd like us to contemplate even more, I would definitely be open to that.
I'm not ready to say that I'm suggesting.
Here's the banner.
Doing it. I was just
Yeah,
curious as to
yeah.
if it had been done in the past or if there'd been previous conversations and positions. I think your response is spot on as being the silent partner. Is within the mission and the values of COIC. The numbers associated with some of these projects, just in the 9 months that I've been involved, seem to be increasing in scope, in some cases scale. And so as some of those large projects turn into regional significant investments, there might be an opportunity there, but it need to be done in such a way that elevates the other partners in the project as well, as opposed to bringing COIC to the top. So I'm not recommending anything. It was just a question.
No, I love that. And I would add that we do, with visibility comes more requests, and we joke internally a little bit about being loved to death. So we want to, and so being in the right space, we do get requests where we would need to say, yes, we helped on this project. The difference would be that we're helping law enforcement associated with our membership, which is associated with, so different than, we have a group of nonprofits that would like us to help on a large scale project that would also, so there's also this weighing that goes on too. Where it'd be great at one day, if one day we could do all, but that just isn't, it's not possible. So we want to be careful about not being stretched too thin, but being able to say yes in the spaces where we really feel that we can complement what's being asked. But I like where you're going. And we've talked about it, that visibility piece of our strategic planning as well. There have been a few years where we're like, please don't poke your head out. You don't have any more time and bandwidth to sort of, because it's just, it takes a lot to get something going, and often that isn't billable. So, but I like where your mind's going.
We will remember your comments and remind you of them.
I love it.
You're asking to do something.
Yes, another, right, exactly, yes. Yeah, Michelle and I, we keep a lot of things in check. Yes, great question.
And while we're on reports, I want to thank Bob again for expanding Dial-A-Ride in Juniper Canyon that started this Wednesday.
Yeah,
Great
Thank you
job.
very much.
Yeah.
Yesterday, started yesterday, on
Actually,
April
started
Fool's
on
Day.
Monday, we even went earlier for you.
Okay, well, perfect, perfect. You didn't tell them April Fools, huh?
No.
Perfect.
That's great.
well, tonight we have the Michelle show, so. thank you, Michelle, for
Yay.
taking it away.
Hey, we can probably get through this pretty fast, but, so the first action item would be the budget committee member. So last month, we brought forward the budget, calendar, and we brought forward one of the budget committee members. We hadn't heard from Leona Ike, who's a Morgan Springs tribal member, if we had commitment from her or not for renewing her 3-year membership, being on the budget committee. We've heard from her, she'd love to be, so if the board would like to appoint her. we can move.
And I will say, oh, okay, they both got.
Okay. Moved in, seconded to reappoint, or,
Leona Ike,
Leona Ike to the budget committee
budget committee for 3-year term.
for a 3-year term.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, motion passes.
Okay. The procurement policy.
And Cheryl, we see you coming off mute.
Okay, aye.
So, do we have that worksheet that, or that one?
Oh, do you want me
pass
to-
out?
Well,
Sure.
what's your thought
Just that I've got someone.
on this one?
Yeah.
Okay,
This is-
okay, okay.
This is kind of the summary of the procurement.
So,
There is 65 more pages to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is, here, give Tim.
Tim, haven't you read it all?
I got it committed to memory.
This is,
Yes.
this
I'm
is,
surprised.
Let me just take that and throw it back.
Chapter and verse.
This is your, quiz.
Tim, this is the quiz, so just, it's not open book. There you go.
No testing.
Yeah, great to see you.
Geez.
Oh,
Or Brian
okay.
Platter, he could put anything he keeps waiting.
So in the procurement packet, there is a 65-page procurement policy and it has procedures in it as well. This is a complete overhaul. That's why you don't see a red line. Our previous policy was 6 pages.
Yep, right.
This is a brand new policy, so there is no red line to kind of see the differences. This policy has been reviewed by legal counsel. It isn't our attorney's favorite policy, due to it really being focused on federal spending. But he said it does meet compliance requirements for state, so he would prefer to have more state compliance requirements in there. We need this policy to be compliant for both Fed and state. So we had our ODOT review and our FTA triangle review. And the areas that we had the most findings were in procurement. And it really was the fact that our policy was outdated. It wasn't up to compliance standards. It didn't have enough teeth to it. It was 6 pages and this is 65. So I worked with ODOT and FTA to get a policy from another agency that was compliant and went through a review and had no findings. We took that, we got it from Road Rally Transit, we took that policy and we updated it for COIC since we're an intergovernmental council, not a transit district. So this will cover all of our programs, but it will also get us back into compliance with FTA and ODOT. There are a few things though. So on this, you'll see where we are current limits for our procurement limits versus our proposed limits. So these are the big changes, along with the authority level, budgeted level of who would be able to approve what. I get to sign every check pretty much that COIC writes. Tammy also gets to sign every check. So even with the program administrators being able to approve anything under $2,500, there are multiple levels of oversight at COIC to kind of see everything that we're spending and making sure it's within budget. And then we do follow Oregon budget law. So per Oregon budget law, the board has to approve a budget for COIC to even be able to spend anything. So every year we'll take a budget to the board for approval, which comes up here shortly. And then the staff, based on this level, can approve as long as things are in the budget and they've already been approved by the board. if we have things that, are outside of budget, that's where this board gets involved again. So our budget is based on, categories such as total personnel, total materials and service, total capital outlay, total debt service, and then transfers, contingency, and fund balance. So if we're spending within our allowed budget for those line items by those categories, it wouldn't come to this board for approval again. But if we did have something that, was gonna come up that was an overage, it would be brought forward to this board before we even incur that expense, because we'd have to ask for a budget modification. So an example would be for capital outlay, say we had $1 million budgeted and the board approved for capital outlay. And in that budget, there's 3 buses for 300,000 apiece, and then IT software for 100,000. Say the buses come in, one comes at 325, one comes in at 300, and the other one comes in at 250. So we end up spending a total of 875 on buses. But the IT software comes in at 125, we're still within budget, so we're still within compliance because we haven't overspent what we've allowed on the budget. It's just that some things came in higher, some things came in lower, and the end result, we're still right where we should be. But if we took that same scenario where our budget was $1 million and each bus came in at 350, now we're already over budget and we still have IT software. So that's where we would be coming forward even before we purchased all the buses, because we're already overspending on the buses. We'd come forward to the board, ask for a budget modification. Of course, if we're gonna ask to spend more, then we better be able to find more revenue to pay for those expenses.
So the questions to answer.
Yeah. So just kind of wanted to go over that, for more of the back end stuff. That isn't laid out like that in the policy, but it is a policy with a lot of procedures for staff on. Here's your selection limits, here's how you do the things you do, here's what procurement looks like, that stuff. Any questions? I know you guys are so excited about procurement.
You explained it very well.
Have there been any like barriers with the existing limits that currently exist where the organization wanted or needed to do something but couldn't because the thresholds were too low? I'm just curious.
It's caused a lot of excess work, so as with everything else, prices have gone up.
Yeah.
And so with our current limits, I mean, currently anything over $2,500, we're having to get 3 quotes for everything that we buy that's over $2,500. You can imagine that's quite a bit of stuff.
Just to maintain compliance with the policy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for every department right now, except for transportation, they have to do a full procurement for anything over $50,000. Like, go out there, seek bids, formally publish it, have an evaluation committee for anything over 50,000. Back in the day, that worked really well, and $50,000 is not a small amount for every department besides transportation, but to always have to go and do a formal procurement process takes a lot of time. So that's why we're increasing those limits, and these limits aren't as high as you can go, but we're trying to have that balance for the other departments. I mean, technically, we could have gone to 250 for the non-transportation departments, but for those departments, 250 is a lot of money. So that's why we looked at keeping it at 100,000.
I would also, if I may, just add that there are times that we decide to do a formal procurement below these thresholds, because it allows for more transparency, more ability to sort of cast the net and use a formal process, particularly for some of the local funding, where we always try to lean on the side of more is better in some of those areas, but it also affords a legal protest period. It affords, there's some risk associated with it too, but there have been a number of occasions that we've used a formal procurement that's below the thresholds that we currently have.
Yeah.
But there's also been times that the states sent us funding, and it's general state funding, and they said, oh, and by the way, hurry up and spend it, because it expires in a couple of months.
Requirements.
And, you know, we need vehicles or we need X, Y, and Z software, but it's over the 50,000 threshold. Technically, we should be doing a full RFP for that, but we don't have time to do it. Otherwise, those funds have expired. So this will help us not be in those scenarios, because those departments spending 100,000 or close to and over, usually they should be doing a formal procurement for whatever they're looking for.
My only question was, where did you get the numbers from that we're going to? The proposed numbers? It looks like a lot of things have doubled or
Yeah.
more. Is there a reason why we went to those numbers and not, let's say 75,000 instead of 100,000? What was the reasoning for?
Yeah.
With the numbers?
So I looked at ODOT, which is state, we looked at the FTA, which is federal, and then we looked at, I think, the city of Redmond, the city of Bend, and I also think we looked at maybe the city of Madras or Jefferson County. And just kind of tried to pick something that made kind of sense, but also wasn't too restrictive to where now we're dealing with the state. The state of hurry up and spend it, but really you should be doing a formal procurement. Thing, yeah.
Well, if you have new revenue coming in, you should actually be supplemental budgeting, shouldn't you? You can't spend money before you budget money.
Yes, but sometimes we budget funds that we think we're gonna get that actually don't come to fruition and they backfill something else.
So I mean, you have a projected budget of, say, $250,000 for something.
Yeah.
Knowing that your current expense level is not gonna spend that 250, you're gonna change the expense level once you get the additional revenue,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So that's a way of having the budget in place and approved and allows, you don't have to do an amended budget. Because the budget assumes that additional revenue is coming in, but their plan for spending keeps you below that.
I would assume a budget has identified all sources of revenue, and it also has identified how you're gonna spend all that revenue. It's not identified revenue and then sort of says, or it identifies expenses and revenue that has no source yet, but that seems kind of not very transparent budgeting either. If we're budgeting and we don't know if we're getting money or we don't know that we're spending money.
So,
Well,
so
I'm
we,
assuming that there's an expense as well, so maybe I misspoke, but, you know, we have 250 and 250 on the revenue and expense side,
Yeah.
but the spending plan assumes a lower for both until that revenue's received
And we
or
would just-
secured, and then they're gonna step up the spending
Yeah.
level.
and we do go in a lot of detail at the budget committee, more than I've brought to the board. I mean, the budget committee, they get to spend, I think, for 4 or 5 hours with me. So, yeah.
As the tutorial.
Yeah, so we do kind of talk about those scenarios, so I'm gonna pick on CED right now. CED is one of our unique departments where their funding cycle isn't on an annual basis, it's not a biennium basis, so like transportation where I'm pretty sure I know what revenue I have for the next year or 2 years, except for some supplemental grant applications that are coming due this month. CED, sometimes what we put in the budget, because it's not 100% secured, but we feel confident about that source. By the time the budget gets approved to the actual start of the new fiscal year, which is usually just a couple months, that source may have gone away, but we have another source right behind it to backfill that. And so we've had conversations at the budget committee level, especially when we have spots in the budget where we don't have a particular person in that spot. And we say, we think we're gonna get this revenue to do X. We're gonna put this position in the budget. If we get that revenue to do X, then we will hire Y. If we don't, then we're not hiring. So there is, especially for CED, more than probably any other department that we run, they're just off cycle. They get revenue throughout the year. So we do build a budget, a reasonable budget. And if we end up getting a lot of funding that we didn't expect, then there is a supplemental budget to bring forward to the board.
The other compounding piece is that we are presenting the budget before the legislative session ends. So often on the long sessions, we don't really know until signing guide what the funding's actually going to be. So we're making our best guess as we bring that to you, but those last few weeks and even days, as you all know. So it's not ideal. It'd be great if it were a little more.
But I understand all those scenarios. What didn't make sense to me was the scenario, all of that's playing in game. Now suddenly you said ODOT gives you X amount and says, hurry up and spend it. Well, X amounts, what are you gonna hurry up and spend it on? That's, to me, that requires some sort of game plan. And because it's new revenue source, not yet allocated to anything, it would require a supplemental budget.
And it did, so that, I think it was maybe last year, or the year before. Not ODOT, but I think it was HEC. Higher Education Coordinated Commission for the state. They gave our youth department quite a bit of extra funding. And so we did use that funding to purchase vehicles. So we did bring a supplemental budget. Even though transportation wasn't gonna spend all their capital outlay, so technically. I did need to come and ask for a supplemental because we weren't gonna overspend our capital outlay budget. One department was underspending, but this was new funding for a different department, so we did bring a supplemental budget.
And that plays into the no surprises.
Yeah.
Which were constantly, if I were a board member, where are we striking to make sure that you are apprised of the nuances that she's brought forward? So we lean on the side of, instead of, do we have to? It's sort of, we're reading out why we wouldn't versus why we would. I guess might be a better way of saying it.
I have
Yeah, it's
I
not
have a
a-
couple of
well,
questions.
Oh, good.
Okay, so just looking at this procurement limit proposed, to me personally, it just seems really high compared to before. But I am curious. I have a couple questions that I'm curious about. Number one, when you go out for a formal procurement proposal, how long does that usually take? And then secondly, when you get this money from the state, what do these amounts look like? I mean, is this kind of in line with the amounts or are they quite a bit smaller, quite a bit larger? I'm just curious.
So a formal procurement can take weeks to months, depending on what we're procuring for and how long we need to give proposers or bidders to respond. So, and then you have your evaluation committee, you have contract negotiation after that. So it really can take weeks to months. We're usually procuring for services like a new IT contractor to support us, or new software, camera software for all the buses and all the facilities. So you're talking usually hundreds of thousands of dollars. As far as the funding to support those projects, I mean, it ranges, but we receive 58 million for our 6/30/25 year in revenue. So that's across all the departments, but I just looked at that number for something else. So it's in my mind of like, it was 58 million is what we had run through our organization this last fiscal year. So it can be grants as small as 2,500. It can be grants as high as millions of dollars. It just ranges based on the department that's supporting it, the agency that's funding it, and what they're funding. I mean, transportation is about 70% of our budget. So most of it's ODOT, FTA, the counties and the cities.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So have you guys lost out on anything with the current limits?
I would say it's made us inefficient on being able to move forward with projects at times, because it's taken longer than it should to get from X to Y.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So So what this is really doing is it's giving authority to your department heads or program administrators for implementing the budget that had been approved.
Correct.
And it really, it provides oversight for really big ticket items.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
I suspect the current procurement limits were set years ago. So if we were to take inflation and other kinds of things, we fall into the middle column anyway.
What are examples of stuff that, you know, at these higher limits, what are examples, say, over the last year? Where we've had a procurement process, either a contract or a purchase. I mean, I can think of some things, probably transportation.
Yeah.
Buses
Yep.
and software equipment and,
Yeah.
you know, maybe the contract for, dealing with new fare systems and those sorts of things. I don't know if there's others that jump out, but.
IT services was another, and we will have another one on the horizon.
For transit.
No, for CYC
CYC.
in general, so, it's those sorts of really higher level type of,
Are there contracts for services like consulting? kinds of things, or-
absolutely, you bet. So could be, so you have a, $50,000 or $100,000 contract for certain types of, whether that's a website design, or it could be a, marketing campaign, or it could be a, trying to think of examples here. And so depending on the threshold would dictate what type of process we would want to use or need to use as well. And again, if there are unique circumstances, we may decide to use a more aggressive process rather than so we might decide to do a $50,000 contract where we maybe don't need to do a fully loaded RFP process until 100,000. We might do it at 50 for a certain reason. I can't think of what that might be right off the top of my head right now, but it doesn't mean that we wouldn't. It just means that for the majority of the processing and business that we're doing, these are the limits that sort of, to recognizing today's reality, are sort of the thresholds of the more practical, common thresholds that we're seeing when we're needing to do the RFP process.
Well, yeah, I think of buying a desktop computer. Under the old column, you required 2 administrators to get involved, and under the new one, now you're down to 1. And to me, that seems like an efficient use of time.
Yeah.
The big ticket items, you know, always have a lot of scrutiny and need
Yeah.
scrutiny, but it's what I call the nickel and dime stuff that you could spend an awful lot of administrative time that says, look, the budget, you're in charge of your budget, and if you overspend it, we'll go to the closet, but you know, until then, you're in charge. And
Yeah, and each one, it's not as though it's that program administrator just on their own executing whatever. They are working with their department manager who's overseeing that, the department director's overseeing. So it's really, I mean, we're government light, but we're still government, so there's a lot of checks and balances. And again, Michelle and I are the checks and balances. Either one of us are able to go to Susie and say, please cut us a check for XYZ without the other needing to also approve. So it's probably more process. Bob's gonna roll his eyes because we are process heavy. So it's probably more process than what some in the departments would like to see. But this is a step toward being able to help us be a little bit more efficient and responsive to the needs.
So basically, currently, right now, anything that is 2,500 or over, up to 50,000 for non-transportation, I'm just gonna pick on them because it's most restrictive. You have to go get 3 quotes, you're documenting that. 25,000 50,000 isn't a really low number, but 2,500 is. And I think that's where increasing that 2,500 to 10,000. As long as it's budgeted, now you're not having to go out and shop around and find 3 quotes, especially if you have the thing. Now that doesn't mean that you go out and you buy the most expensive teapot in the world because it's under 10 grand. It has to be reasonable. There's still price shopping. Yeah.
Does that explain?
Yeah, right.
But if you are looking for a contractor to do something for us and you know of someone and it seems reasonable, now you don't have to shop out for those services. Now, if somebody comes and they say, my hourly rate is 3,000 an hour, well, then definitely we should be shopping out for services, right? But I think it's allowing the team to be more efficient with their time and not always having to go to a procurement heavy system because of our limits are so low.
And page 10 of the procurement policy kind of goes over, it's maybe an overview of the types of procurement. Because this doesn't really say exactly what the
Yeah,
process you have to
yeah.
use this to just authority.
Yeah.
Level, but if you look on there, it corresponds to the numbers in here. Sort of this micro purchase of less than 10,000, 10,000 to 100, and then later the document kind of reported all the things to think about
Yeah.
for each of those types of processes.
If I can just add in for transportation, having the most of these, right, the 2,500 is a huge burden for us now, everything is 25, I mean, getting posters and things like that, it's not every time, like, we can't manipulate it, like, hey, today was 750, I'm gonna pay another 750 tomorrow and another 750. Right, it's stuff like that where it was just increasingly taking a lot of time, the big numbers that we had, they're even further less than like what we had at ODOT, which is fine, it's really that 2,500 one, and then to Councilor Riley's point, it's that procurement process, most of it, it's state or federal dollars. If it's federal, they have their own requirements that we're following that are very thorough. Our biggest one, Councilor Riley, to answer your question, this year was security, it's a big contract, and we go through a full formal process, you know, to select.
I guess, I was glad to see a conflict of interest section in here as well as a gift. Those are important. And I don't know what it looked like beforehand. I assume that there's always something in there, but for any procurement policy, those are really important. I think from my perspective as a board and voting on like the governance side of this, if you and your other leaders are saying this is what we need it to be for reasons X, Y, and Z, I'm gonna support that decision. And this isn't a caveat to condition or a threat, but what it does is it provides a longer road for people to make bad decisions faster and longer.
Yeah.
And the board isn't accountable to each one of those negligent acts,
Sure.
right? Intentionally or unintentionally. And I'm not implying that that would be intentional at any point in time, but so it's just a reminder that like, if you're asking for this, I'm personally going to vote for it. But take a look at the procedures in place to train the staff who are going to be empowered to make the decisions to make better decisions than what they otherwise might without that training. Right? And so what does it look like to say yes to a $5,000 bill simply because the threshold is 10,000? If somebody else could have got it for 2,500, that mistake might be tolerable once. Maybe, but if 10 people are doing it, it starts adding up pretty fast. And so I would just say revisit, you know, what is the training that goes into the procurement decision makers so that they understand what the downside risk is for making a buy decision. But for me personally, everybody else can make their own decision. If you're asking for it, I'll give you all the rope necessary.
Yeah. Well, and we did, so with the chair and vice chair, we did do some mental gymnastics of a different sort of, and then if this, then this, and if this, then that. And, you know, a lot of it does come down to executive judgment and discernment of how you're operating an organization. And it was difficult to kind of put into place all of the sort of nuances that come up. And that's why I think it's important for you to hear that we lean on I'd rather bring it than not. And for the team, any dollar we save goes right back into their departments, and that is the culture of who we are. So they know that when we can save from doing a potluck, even something as simple as that, rather than buying food and having it brought in, that there's a savings there that you can maybe have more of those events by doing it by a potluck. And we just, so the culture of the organization matters to me a lot in how, I don't want us to not be purchasing where we need to. And a great example would be when I first arrived, we were not bringing Gatorade to our youth that were out in the field. And Michelle and I, I don't know if you recall that, but
I don't, but
I was sort of like, why are we not, are you kidding? It's 100 degrees and somebody, I mean, so kids have water bottles, but I mean, we should, anyway. So I just thought, there are just things that we should be able to afford for what we're doing. And there are things that if we can save 2,500 and spend it instead of spending 5,000, all that 2,500 goes right back into supporting the exact thing that everyone is on the mission to do.
Sure.
So I appreciate you saying that. And yes, when I start to feel like that rope is going around my neck, I'm going to be in front of you sharing what it is that we've got going on.
And I would like to add one more thing too, and it's laid
Yeah.
out in here for the staff, right? Cause this is all gonna come out to the staff. We're gonna send it out. We're gonna do trainings and all of that. Currently, right now, if you spend under $500, there's no paperwork to fill out. Of course, your manager has to approve it and that kind of stuff, but there's no real
Receipts.
paperwork. Yeah,
Yeah.
receipts. Anything over 500 is a purchase requisition, which is basically an approval form. We're taking that 500 and moving it up to 2,500. So if I'm out, if one of my employees is out purchasing something and say it's a new IT software and it's $5,000, they're gonna first, before they purchase it, they're gonna actually submit a purchase requisition and they're gonna have information on there. And I'm gonna be able to look at it as the department manager and say, was that budgeted or not budgeted? What they have on there, does that make sense? Does it seem like it's too high? So there is that oversight before we're just going out and spending $10,000 on something. There is that purchase requisition piece. And then, you know, after that, it goes more formal and more documentation that you spend more. So hopefully that helps.
This is Cheryl.
Yeah.
I think it's great to see that somebody's looked at this policy after 10 years. And, you know, really trying to constantly work better and more efficiently. As a board, we've already set the guardrails by approving the overall budget. And now it's in your hands. So I support this. And then I would just want to add that maybe we need to be looking at some other policies that haven't been touched in 10 years and dust them off a bit. So just some feedback on that. And maybe you're already thinking that.
Cheryl, they're coming your way.
Oh, we have so many. We have so many. Oh, boy.
Great.
Yeah.
So I will make the motion that the COIC board approve the updated procurement policy and procedure manual as presented.
Yeah, second.
I think maybe Cheryl said.
Cheryl, are you seconding there?
Yep, that's okay.
So we had a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Did I hear aye from everybody online? Whitney and Chris? Chris, are you still there?
Yes. Not sure about Chris, but you heard from me.
Okay.
May I add that, through the conversations that Via has, quarterly, if not even more, frequently, bringing an overview, putting it in terms of, a report that would show the major expenditures in which we are embarking on. So, you know, oh, right, okay, good, we bought those buses. And we are seeing that show up in the, many of the reports, but with those larger expenditures throughout the year, just having a place where you all can sort of be tracking what's going on as well.
I think that's something that, Counselor Nielsen from Redmond Task Force.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So and again, this isn't accompanying anything other than, I know that you all read this in great detail and I'm sure you highlighted all of the areas, but just as a cheat sheet to show what was changing. That's another thing that isn't necessarily in the policy or the procedures, but something that, I think makes great sense and would be that.
Well, thank you for getting diverse comparables when taking this into account.
Yeah.
So making sure you went out to our local areas and similar entities to get comparables on this, that makes me feel a lot more comfortable.
Good. And we'll be bringing it forward after our attorney gets to tear it apart and sort of rebuild it with FDA and ODOT compliance and look at it again too. And if something doesn't seem to be working, then we can look at those limits again. It was just what we kind of talked about and proposed based on what we've seen the programs, especially non-transportation, struggle with over the years of that 50,000 cap, just really sometimes created extra barriers for them. So. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
I did. Yeah, yep. Do you want to vote again? Are you so excited? Ooh, privacy notice.
Okay, this one might be really fast. It is all up to you guys, but I don't have a lot to say besides we are getting a new phone system. Our phone system is extremely ancient and dysfunctional at best.
No longer supported.
Yeah.
Oh boy, oh boy.
So the new system, Ring Central, actually works really, really well. It's almost fully implemented organization wide. We're working on our call center. And then this is one piece that we need for the organization so we can fully implement it. So these policies we currently do not have. The privacy notice and the SMS, and this will allow some text messaging. It's gonna allow us to reduce cell phone usage across the organization. During the pandemic, we ended up needing to get a lot of cell phones. We'll actually be able to pare those down quite a bit, and it will also allow us to have better and easier public records access versus what we currently have going on with cell phones
And archiving.
and archiving. Yeah, so.
Good for you. Ring Central SMS services are game changers for organizations.
Yay,
Nice.
you used it?
For the reasons you just stated.
Okay.
Archiving, written communication, absolutely.
Yeah.
It eliminates a lot of redundancies, and I can only imagine the volume of different text strings that exist with multiple cell phones in the field with
Yes.
much stuff that is.
Yes.
Involved with.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a slick program.
And it's gonna reduce our phone bills so much,
Oh.
because we also have not only cell phones, but we also have desk phones from Bentel, which I'm excited to take a bat to my.
I don't know when that was implemented, but we also have a number of individuals that don't even have desk phones because they're not supported. And there's literally a gentleman by the name of Terry who's retired but comes back to change the system.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's no, I mean, we are at that level of limping. So Cheryl, this is in your honor, this is an upgrade. Bringing in a new phone system and being able to have a privacy policy that helps us to capture all that.
Great.
Yeah, the nice thing about Ring Central as well is it has to be compliant with the CAN spam laws that exist out there. And so part of the SMS setup process that you go through is attesting to certain things, but Ring Central provides automated opt-in and opt-out options to any recipient in the process. And so it doesn't put the accountability onto the entity that's using it as well. So it's important there.
Do you want to come and chat with the team? They're very apprehensive. Change is not always easy, and this one, once we get in the groove, it's portable, you're not chained to a desk phone, you can use it wherever.
Exactly. You
Yeah,
can reach employees at home.
well, so that brings up other policies and procedures that, we'll probably need to dive into at some point too.
Anybody else have other questions?
What does this phone look like if it's not a cell phone or a desktop phone?
It's right here.
Yeah, it's a headset.
On your computer. It's on your
Yes.
computer, yeah.
Yeah,
Right now.
and so then you can
But then they have an app
send.
for your phone, right?
They do, yeah. So you'd be required to use the app so that if you were texting, it would capture it or archive it. And then you can text through your computer to a phone and it'll show up on a text message.
So does that mean they would be using their personal phone for the app, or would they have?
We are going to we're not coming for any phones right now, so for anyone listening. But we do intend to work with each of the department directors and managers of who really needs to have a phone available to them as part of their everyday job. Michelle, for instance, myself, evenings, weekends, literally fire alarms going off and whatever.
The ones that aren't necessary.
And then there are some that maybe it's a convenience. And so if they choose to use their personal cell phone because it's a convenience, they would be required to have the app and use the app in order to be able to communicate, because if not, that opens their personal cell phone to the ability for public records. And that is likely not what they would want.
Yeah, because you have to, that printed out, that gets pretty bad.
This brings me back to the 1990s when everybody in public government cell phones were being Freedom of Information Act imposed. And public phones went away and everybody went to private phones, and we thought that saved us forever and ever and ever.
No, because now they ask for media essays for.
Yeah.
That's why you carry two phones now.
Yes, and let's just say that someone has printed out all of my texts. So I won't say what the entity was, but yes, I think this is a
Yeah.
wonderful thing, and maybe Crook County needs to look at it.
Yeah.
Well, and I've also over the year, I mean, it only takes once where you text someone something and then you see that in the paper. And then you realize, shoot, I knew that was, it's usually some cheeky something, that's
Just even a screenshot of it.
even a
Oh, so,
screenshot,
yeah.
even a little, haha, isn't that funny? Maybe not.
I don't think
Not
this is
necessarily
something to solve that.
Right, yeah, yeah,
Right.
right, exactly.
Records and all of that is so ever changing.
Yes, yeah,
And it is very, very difficult, and like in Crook County, Ryan Barney's a farmer and I'm a farmer. And if we want to go to a farm thing, then you have to declare, but we're not making a decision, we're going for information, or, and it's just so convoluted and it gets so difficult.
yeah. Even carpooling, which
Oh,
ride,
yeah.
yeah, don't
Oh, yeah.
dare ride together.
I never
No, really,
make-
it's just-
No, it's just, like I say, the
Optics.
evolving of ethics and all of that is just
Yeah,
really becoming difficult. So if it can archive, that is really great.
yeah, and we have responsibility to be transparent.
Yeah.
So, and we wanna make it easier for the team also.
So do we have a motion for these particular policies? We have to do two
Okay,
motions.
want to make a motion?
Okay, so I recommend that we approve the privacy notice policy and the SMS terms and conditions policy with the addition of the URLs once they are completed.
Very
Woo-hoo.
good.
Second,
Second,
Oh,
Second.
Wendy into the
Yeah.
second, love it.
Perfect.
I'm on it.
any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Great, motion passes.
Great job.
So that's our,
She's gonna give an audit update.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So audit update, I will be very quick. So we were planning on bringing forward our 6/30/25 audit to this board meeting. I checked in with Raymond, our auditor. He ended up needing to put some things ahead of our audit, because he put some things off, to get our other audits over the finish line. So he said he's got a few more weeks to wrap up all of his testing and he's getting through it pretty fast. He does have a question on some of the housing and homelessness expenditures that we have in our 6/30 audit. Not the fact of if they're in compliance, but more of the accounting treatment. We are currently going under our review with Oregon Housing
And community
and
services.
Community Services, so they're also pulling the samples and looking at them as well. I don't think that they're gonna look at them from an accounting standpoint, they're gonna look at it from a compliance standpoint. So I'm working with Raymond and working with OHCS to kind of get those two together, so Raymond can get what he needs on some accounting treatment. It really is that our grant ended on 6/30. We did a rent buy down for the old Mill Inn and Suites. And he sees it being one way for accounting treatment, but because the grant ended, it's looking like it's another way. So we're kind of working through that together. But he won't issue our financial statements in final form until we kind of get to the bottom of that. So I'm hoping May. We should have them by May, unless I'm waiting on the state. So just wanted to give you guys an update.
Yeah, so we haven't done anything, there's nothing that we've done. Overall,
Everything we did
it's just,
was in
it's not
compliance.
aligning. So worst case is we end up with two different, do you mind?
Yeah,
So,
so basically, the old Mill Inn and Suites, we did a rent buy down for about 2.7 million. And in the agreement, we were really and wanted to be really restrictive legally and lay it out for exactly what we were paying for, even though we were prepaying, you could say we were prepaying rent. Technically, for accounting, that should be a prepaid asset, not an expense on 6/30, but the grant was ending on 6/30, so it's an expense. So he'd like us to take it out of expense and put it on our balance sheet as a prepaid asset. But for the grant, I need it to be an expense. So we're kind of trying to determine
How to do it.
how to do it, and it could be, the one thing that him and I did talk about was for our government-wide, because we always have government-wide financial statements and we have GAAP financial statements, and there's always a difference between those two because of PERS and all that other stuff. We talked about treating it as an expense for our government-wide and a prepaid asset for our GAAP financial statements. But he wants the state to weigh in on it a little bit before he's comfortable going that direction. So, but if they're okay with it, he's okay with it. He just kind of wants to get their take on it.
I think there is a chance that the state says we can't weigh in on that.
Yeah.
And so, and we can't weigh in a timely, manner. It's really a pretty specific to us situation. So, I don't want to be, Debbie Downer, but I think the odds of us really getting clarity quickly is probably not realistic. So that likely could be the outcome. So I just want you all apprised of, we do have another plan. So we won't let it go too far, but we're gonna work with the state and with Raymond and see if we can get clarity, but
We'll figure out an answer for sure.
Yeah.
I guarantee that. And if it's, he's not looking at a compliance and we knew we could do what we did, it's how are we treating it?
Yeah.
Financially, and if they even allow us to do it as a prepaid, then I'll reclassify it. And we'll move it where it needs to be technically for GAAP, but it all kind of depends on what the state wants us to do or not do.
What's the old Inn and Suites used for?
So that was the hotel that was refurbished in Bend, and it's 100% for homeless
rapid rehousing.
Thank you.
Yep.
So we locked up that facility when it was open for this project for, I think, 4 years or 5 years.
75 units.
Yep.
And so when we made that commitment, the rapid rehousing, and they were looking for stabilization for individuals getting into housing. And so one of the commitments was a longer term stabilization. And so we came up with a mechanism to be able to extend the use of those dollars instead of just spending it to spend it down. And so we worked with the state and said, sure, we could spend this all by June 30, but we have a better plan. Let's keep this in affordability. And so we could buy 2 additional years with that. And the state said, that's pretty creative, we'll let you do that. So we had approval from the state. And so that's the mechanism in which we were able to extend that and keep it in affordability. And now we're sort of, but how do we capture that from an accounting
How do we
standpoint?
report it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And who's the landlord?
So it's owned by Watson Properties. It was owned by Fortify, and Watson was a minority partner and is now the majority or the only partner. So we've been working very closely with them, and they've been working with the state too. So I think partly the partners that we had, plus our track record, quite frankly. And we're pretty good at making a good case that you said you wanted longer term stabilization. This is kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
that's a Michelle show. Thank you.
So quick roundtable, if anybody has anything they want to share from their communities, I'm just going to remind people that next Tuesday, there's an event being put on by the Central Oregon Civic Action Project, which we heard about last time. They're the ones that do civic assemblies, which is kind of this new tool for community engagement on kind of tough, sticky issues in communities, a way of getting a whole broad spectrum of people involved. COIC is going to play a role with the Civic Action Project and kind of the fiscal sponsor to get them going. And but they're doing a training at COCC in Redmond next week for a couple days. And in the afternoon on Tuesday from 1 to 3, there's kind of an overview of what civic assemblies are. So it's a good introduction. If you're curious about it, I will resend the email I sent out about this about a week and a half ago I know, Susie Kendall, I'm gonna be there, and other people can be there. It'd be great to just get a sense of this project that will be part of COIC for a while.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll be there.
Thank you for sending that.
Yeah.
That executive session looks really interesting. For a quick overview, what's your assessment on the $50 fee at the bottom of the registration?
Oh, I didn't even. Sure.
It asked if you could afford $50. And
Oh, in there,
so weird the way it asked it. I thought that.
Yeah, for the
How did
executive
it go
session
for?
alone.
Yeah, it said, can you afford?
Yeah, okay.
Hey, I think it said,
Yeah.
can you afford?
Because when you go to register, they had a
But
survey.
you know what I wrote back? I said Mike Riley's covering my.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, you sent me an email, so and I said, yes, I figured that meant you were bumping.
So Susie will buy you lunch.
Yes, yes.
No, yeah, we'll just have a little bit of.
Pass it along. Everyone
It
leave
was
your pop
odd.
cans, water bottles.
It
It
was,
all falls under the $500
It
limit,
does.
so anybody.
There you go. There you go.
right, I
Yeah.
thought it was very odd though, how the bought. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I do remember that now that you mentioned. it.
Yeah.
I didn't look at it since I'm gonna.
Sounds like we're all in agreement.
They've never said anything about having to pay them. But they also haven't said anything about, like, I've gotten a response on that form.
Oh, you haven't?
I don't.
I think I did I think I did maybe. I'm gonna have to look
I
now
probably
that you
just
say
did.
that. Well, like I say, I just said Michael Pay, so. No.
Just so you know, if anybody does pay for that, it is going to a COIC account and we're tracking it for that project. We did set up Square for it. We did set up Square for it,
Okay.
Oh,
so.
I love that. Okay.
Okay, if I bring a $50 bill, are you taking a picture of it? Or how are you-
I don't know, cash has a way of sometimes disappearing, so maybe
Okay.
don't,
Yeah.
maybe skip it, but.
It does? Uh-oh.
No, it doesn't, but yeah, it would, we set up a Square account on the
Okay.
back end for
Sure,
that,
okay.
so, and any, it's not fares, but any. Tickets or
Yeah.
whatever would go to support that project.
So I have a quick point of
Yeah.
order for
Yeah.
tonight's meeting. One of the things that I love about our partners at the city of Madras is that with everything that they have going on, Ms. Whitney has been able to join us this evening, but because of our bylaws and the way that we are established, we are not allowed to have someone who is not the alternate as a voting member, but they are more than welcome to join us, which Whitney, thank you for joining and thank you for your questions.
Yes, and
However-
I am the alternate to
So
Gabe Solis.
So we have someone else listed, which is totally fine, and we will make that change. But
Okay,
because of what we have on our side is we have Counselor Siebold. So we will clean that up and we'll work with you on that. But for tonight, we do need to, just for process purposes, and Whitney, I'm sorry, but we are so excited that you're here. We just, because you were second on the motion for the ever so exciting privacy notice and SMS terms and conditions for Ring Central. If someone else wouldn't mind being her second.
I will be.
Oh,
second.
okay.
I'll take over.
thanks, Seth.
Commissioner Shaler is in White Horse. He's here, so thank you. So if we could please have the minutes reflect that Commissioner Taylor is the second on that ever so important policy. And I think we've just got cleanup. So
Do
Whitney,
we do resolutions make for the?
so we will follow up on that part, not a worry. And Whitney, you could have your whole council join. But just for the formality of who we have listed as the alternate and who is the alternate, we'll just want to clean that up after. So forgiveness for if that feels awkward, but we just, for the record, want to make sure that we have it all put together. And thank you, Kimberly, for catching that. So there we have it.
Good job.
Anybody else have anything they want to share?
I do.
Yay.
In I think it was February, it feels like a long time ago, but that was just 6 weeks ago. I visited Dana Dunlop at the WorkSource offices to get a one-on-one tour and visit of the different services that Dana and the team at WorkSource is conducting. And I was very impressed with all of the employees that were working there. the different programs. So everybody spent about 3 minutes with me going over some of the programs that they work on. We're trying to quantify the scale of it, and it's a big operation with as few of human capital resources employees that are running the show. It sits adjacent to WorkSource Oregon, so it's really easy for people who haven't seen the setup to get WorkSource intermingled with you might be doing it now as I'm describing it.
Well, we are required to brand their work under WorkSource. Yeah.
Dana's programs are an investment that is very specific and targeted, whereas some of the other services that are administered by the state directly are much more general. And so out of it came some marketing collateral that we took back to our office that Dana said they haven't really used for a couple of years, but a lot of organizations have people walk in looking for work. We're saying, are you hiring right now? And oftentimes it's met with a no. And so some of the programs include weekly resume building programs and interview building programs and things that are just really important even for a seasoned workforce that maybe hasn't experienced a change in employment in a long time. So it was a great tour. I appreciated her time, and Dan and the team there are just doing a great job. The other thing that's exciting about this week for those who follow labor employment numbers like we do, the week after spring break in Central Oregon always kicks off the hiring season for Central Oregon. So while we've had elevated unemployment rates in all counties compared to the previous 3 years, this is the first week where we start to see the hiring frenzy take place in Central Oregon. And it's always relative regardless of what the unemployment rates are. And so all 3 counties right now, we are seeing permanent and seasonal positions getting hired on at faster rates than what we saw just 4 weeks ago in March. And so what will happen is the unemployment rate will drive down. We'll see the reporting on that at the end of the summer and going into the fall. But it's all positive news. And although it's probably going to be higher than what it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it's going to feel a lot better than what it felt like at different parts during the winter time. So it's true in all 3 counties. So that's our market assessment that won't get reported officially until October.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you for that initiative. She really enjoyed the connection and being able to share the program with you. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
It's
it's
great.
a good use of time.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Elephants?
So,
Yeah, it's out today, but Tim can talk about that.
well, hopefully you've all read in the last couple of days about the Forest Service reorganization on a national level. The headquarters is moving to Salt Lake City. The Region 6, all the regional offices are dissolving and they're going to state offices. So for us meaning Oregon, the office looks like it's going to be put in Salem, not Portland. I think that's a good idea. Puts that organization closer to our state leadership. There's a lot of overlap now with the Oregon Department of Forestry and the U.S. Forest Service through good neighbor authorities and other kind of things. And so I think having both of those entities in Salem, not separated by even 60-70 miles is going to work out all right. So it doesn't look like it's going to affect individual forests. So the Deschutes, the Ochiko, shouldn't be any administrative change or program change. They're just working harder with fewer people and getting things done. So, but
What about your local offices?
You know,
like the Ochiko National Forest Supervisor, there shouldn't be any changes in supervisor offices, the grasslands, any of that stuff. For Oregon, they're gonna maintain 2 research stations. There was a rumor they were gonna close those. One is in Corvallis and one's in La Grande. The La Grande one is the Starkey research, if you've heard about that, they do a lot of wildlife, forestry, human interaction kind of things. At Starkey, and so those are all, look like they're all safe, so.
So
Yeah,
they're gonna have like a, instead of a regional forester, like a state forester.
they'll have
And then-
yeah, so for Washington, the office will be in Olympia. And again, where the state capital is, so I just think those are maybe good moves. Boise will have a state office. Region 6 is Washington and Oregon, so, like I said, all regional offices are closing. So I don't know what's happening to the regional forester.
Went to Washington DC in the middle of February, and I went with 3 other commissioners to the Department of Forestry to meet with the head, Gordon Schultz. What was interesting is you go through security, and then they took you up, first floor, all empty desks, second floor, all empty desks, third floor, all empty desks, and you got in this one wing, and here were like 10 people. And I was the one, I said, "Hey, are you guys looking?" They go, "What are you looking at?" I said, "Well, look at these desks." And then the other 3 went, "Oh my gosh, you're right. How many desks and that were there?" And no one was sitting. And it was obvious that it was
Significant downsizing in the last 12
definitely,
months.
definitely.
But also talking to Director Schultz, that was an internal decision, so it wasn't to do with the administration currently.
Right.
They were, and so it was a self-reflection from the agency saying, we need to do some downsizing and we need to get some restructuring. Which I think, you know, after talking to him, it's,
They did it.
they
for
did
sure.
it, and it's gonna be a very positive thing for our Forest Service, for longevity. And so just, of course, talking to him, making sure that our little grasslands office matters, stay there.
Yeah, don't
It's
Well,
forget.
and he will,
Very nice.
he will be in
Yeah.
Stevenson, Washington next week, where we go to Stevenson next week for the American Forest Resource Council meeting, annual meeting, and he's one of the keynote speakers, so we'll be hearing hopefully a little more about this reorganization from him.
And you're gonna get Seth with.
I'm gonna get Seth with me.
So one of the things that I had spoken to him about, and this kind of pertains to COIC too, but I mean, it doesn't, but it's good for all the ears to hear. Is working with homelessness on federal lands. And taking the good neighbor agreement that we do with our timber and actually looking at that model for how do we work with our sheriff's departments on homelessness issues on our public lands. And so he thought that was a good idea, and so if you're ever in a conversation with him, just make sure you poke that a little bit, just to make sure that it doesn't die out, because it's a Western issue with our Western states that we're dealing with. And so, that's the good neighbor agreement is a great model. Utilizing county and federal partnerships, that we could use for that instance as well.
I want to give a shout out to Megan for being creative with the Safe to Drive program. We're gonna invite her to speak to a Hospitality Alliance group of folks about the program for the summer, so she's
Yay.
very resourceful, and just having her as a rare associate or just someone that we know through the rare program is helpful to help spread that messaging in different platforms. So when we're trying to think of like creative ways to use tourism for COIC programs, then it's nice to be able to have that touch point with COIC. So thanks for all you guys do. Yeah, good job, Megan. Good job, Megan. Yep, we got it. She's all right. She's and cross your fingers, everyone, for the rare program. I think it's going through some transition. Yeah, I got an email from Titus the other day, so just sending good vibes up. It's an important program.
Does that go through Oregon, University of Oregon?
It is May, it's in transition. So,
Looking for a new home.
yeah,
Oh,
not us.
Anybody online, Kristen, or Ricky, if you have anything you wanted to share?
I got to go to Kids Club yesterday and make a presentation about commissioners. And the 9 and 10-year-olds asked me if I was famous. I just wanted to throw that in.
Said I'm sure, here I am.
No, actually, my answer was, no, I'm just Susie, but I just want to throw out that, I actually had an audience of.
I love it.
I
Yeah,
think-
you are now.
I-
You're famous now.
I think it was the snacks.
Oh.
That's what I'm kind of thinking
Oh.
led to that, but I just
Doesn't
wanted
just
to
have to
throw
be
that
10-year-old.
note out that they did ask if I was famous, and I'm pretty sure.
Here, are you famous?
Anyway, I thought it was a pretty cute little comment, yeah. I was
That's
very,
sweet.
that was kind of, that, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I kind of thought about those kids and it made me smile. They're very cute at night.
That's a better thing to wake up for in the middle of the night.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. But anyway, I do think the snacks help.
Yeah.
This is going back a little bit, but in December, I was able to go with Kimberly to the Oregon Youth Challenge Program graduation, which was very inspiring. And our mayor also went, and I know that he has a military background, and I think that he had known somebody in the program, and my husband had been a mentor for one of the people in the program, so just meant a lot to be able to go celebrate that. And one of their top people that spoke was very inspiring because she'd been homeless as a youth out in John Day. And anyway, I would encourage anybody, anytime that there's a graduation, there's opportunity to go, that it really feels good to see that you're helping get these kids on the right path.
That was really nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Graduations are in June and December, so we will send out those invites.
Great.
They do need to know in advance who's coming, and but it is really inspiring, and what an incredible asset we have in our backyard. A lot of those youth are not from our region, but how wonderful to have that asset.
Well, just seeing the families.
Oh, my goodness. And the whole message, it doesn't matter what happened yesterday, it's about today and tomorrow, so it's really a large section of our population of young people that would not be excelling. If
Well,
not
and their
for-
stories, their individual stories were very inspiring.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for making time to do that.
No, it's neat.
We could put a plug in for the city manager position that is open for the city of Madras.
Madras, yeah.
Yes, and the city of Madras has such a great group of can-do people that I would, if you know of someone, that community is really with all the vision work that they've been doing with just the communication and the partnership that they have with the county as well. Send people that way. I think getting the right person for that role would really be great. So sending some good vibes that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I think with that, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting. Thanks for being here already.
Thank you.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah, that's good.
job. I know you watched that vlog.
Yeah.